the core concept of feminism, the core value of feminism, I 100% believe in it. And feminism is about empowering the woman so that first is really about creating space or demanding. Feminism is a movement, it's a revolution. So it's not begging.
Sometimes they confused about, because everyone's definition for the feminine.
Everybody's definition is different. And really, at the end of the day, if your definition is about uplifting and empowering women, you're 90% there. All the other stuff, I guess, is based on your own value system and based on your own experiences. Some people experiences, they have had to fight. So their feminism is about fighting.
This is a place where we explore the process behind success. Each week, we sit with inspiring guests who share their stories, struggles, and triumphs to help you navigate your journey. I'm Julius, your host. Welcome to Tammy Julius podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. This is Tammy Julius today, and we're going to be talking about effective communication and its role in increasing visibility, impact, and positioning. And I have with me today Aisha. I'm going to allow her, we are so lucky and blessed to have her on today, but I'm going to allow her to introduce herself to us. All right. How are you, Aisha?
I'm fine. Thank you very much for having me.
And thank you so much for coming. I'm going to allow you to introduce yourself to the audience.
Okay, well, thank you again. My name is Aisha Cooper Bruce. My brand is actually AC Bruce. So I have over probably 20 plus years now experience working more in the nonprofit sector, in the NGO sector, but working a lot around women empowerment issues, gender issues, doing a lot of work on policy review, program development, fundraising. So anything around organizational development, anything around leadership development, anything around fundraising, networking, how to really position yourself in your organization, and especially with the gender lens, because I'm very focused on women empowerment. So how do we make sure that women are actively involved in those spaces that we belong? So after all these years of working in various capacities with various organizations, I started my own organization in 2010.
Okay.
And ran it successfully for about 14 years before I guess I can say I resigned. Isn't it great when you can resign before you're too old?
Yes.
And so I resigned, and the young lady that worked with me, I mentored, she's now the new executive director.
Okay.
And so after all of those years working for other people, starting my own organization, I've decided, okay, it's time to slow down, and all of those experiences that I've received, how can I not make impact in the lives of individuals and organizations that want to start that journey that I started those years back? And so that's why I started my brand, AC Bruce.
Okay.
And the whole focus of my brand is really helping individuals and organizations to be able to clearly identify their purpose,
Okay.
to write out their vision, and to be able to translate that into action. So if you see my brand, you will see purpose, vision, action.
Yes.
How do I get you from a concept to something tangible?
Yeah.
So I could talk about all the different things I do, but we won't have time.
Exactly.
But that is who I am and what I'm really interested in.
Yeah. I mean, I'm so glad I allowed you to do your own introduction, because I wouldn't know where to start from, because you've achieved so much, in your life that, I mean, I think it's just you will be the right person to tell, what you do, because I won't be able to remember all of it. So I don't know how you're able to do all these things, what I mean? So you've done well, thank you so much for coming. And you mentioned of woman empowerment. How is it like, though? I mean, we all know we've come a long way, when it comes to understanding women. For you, when you started and today, even if that's not the topic that we're gonna discuss today, but just a little, brief, because I'm a bit curious about how it's going. Like when you remember when you started and today.
Okay. Well, like you said, we've achieved a lot.
Yeah.
We are seeing women presidents in Africa, of all places. And look, Africa is actually ahead of the Western world when it comes to women leadership and women president.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah. We were We in Africa right now, just I think what last week or this week. Which African country was it? I don't want to call the wrong country, but I think it's in Southern or East Africa. They just elected a female president and vice president. Both are females, and that's never happened anywhere in the world. Liberia was one of the first African nations to it was the first African nation to have a female president, and since then on the continent, this new lady might be our third female president. So we're
In Ghana, we have a
female vice president. You just elected a female vice president. Our last administration, we had in Liberia. I'm from Liberia, just so you know.
Yeah.
So I'm proud of us because the women in Liberia have been trailblazing and taking the lead when it comes to these things. I mean, one of the first years back on the UN, well, I think they called it the Secretary General, the person in that heads. I think Kofi Anna was in that position once.
Yeah.
The first female king was Liberia, Angie Brooks, years back. So we've come a long way, and I'm so excited that African women, and I'm from Liberia, so Liberian women have really been taking the lead in pushing that agenda. But there's still a lot of work to be done.
What's the goal of the whole agenda? Is it to get the same right or the same privilege as the men, or to go higher than the men? What is it?
I'm glad you asked that question because I was actually segueing right into that point.
Yeah.
But I was just about to say, but my work really isn't so much about women. The work I do is about gender.
Okay.
And so the work I do, I really push a lot because when we talk about gender equity and gender equality, the first thing that comes to people's mind is women. Oh, it's the women stuff. It's the women thing. And I think right now the agenda has been so focused on the empowerment of women that we've kind of isolated men, ostracized men, and even made men to feel threatened about what's happening and how they're supposed to fit in that whole picture. And so I do a lot of work with even my female counterparts, training them on how to do gender work in a way that does not create divide. Because the whole point of the work we're doing and my focus is really about gender equality and gender equity.
Okay.
It's about ensuring that the access to resources and opportunities between that we have shared access to resources and opportunities between each genders.
Okay.
The whole point of this is not for one gender to be more empowered or to be more advanced or to have more opportunities than the other. The reason why we've put so much effort on women is because for as long as we know, men have had access more to a lot of the advances. They've been the one that have been able to go to school. They've been the one that have been able to own property. So for years, men have had the advantage. So in order to balance the scale, a lot of the work has been focused on women.
Yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily mean that gender work is just women.
Yeah.
And so a lot of what I do is I don't just work with women. I work a lot with men and young boys.
Okay.
With a lot of my work, there's a balance between how I work with both sides. And my work with men and young boys is focusing on two things. There's focusing on them understanding what gender work looks like and seeing the benefits to them also by having an empowered woman and having empowered women in their lives and having empowered women in our society. So they see the direct benefit to men. There is a benefit to men. Your stress level, your financial strain, there's a lot that men go through because they're not enough empowered women.
Yeah.
And so the benefits of that, and then also to make them to also understand how these inequalities affects women. Because at the end of the day, I always tell people there are way more good men out there than bad men.
Yeah.
But these things happen to us sometimes just because they don't have our perspective. You may say or do something just because you are a man and you have a different relationship with how the world interacts with you and what the world expects from you. But you may not be aware from the female perspective how those things affect us. And so if only men are making the decisions, a lot of the things that women and girls need will be overlooked, not because they're wicked or evil, but just because it's not in the front of in the foresight of their mind.
Yeah.
So some of my work also is engaging men to be able to see life and see these social situations from the perspective of a woman, and engaging women to make sure that they see life and these social perspective from the perspective of a man. so that they too understand men.
Yeah.
Because a lot of men are also tired and frustrated, and we need to balance that and balance our relationships.
So as you just mentioned, over the years, like it's been men that's like always getting the opportunities and all that. We all know that it's very obvious. So now that your line of work, what is this challenge? Some of the challenges that you face is trying to empower women. Is it difficult? Is it because at the end of the day, it's still the men that's out there, majority of them. So what's some of the challenges that you go through trying to empower women?
Great. The key challenge is really being misunderstood. Yeah, I think you're going against the status quo a lot. You're challenging spaces a lot. And so you have to be assertive. And you can be misunderstood as being aggressive. If a woman speaks out too much, she's trying to be a man. Why is she so loud? And you're not being loud. You're probably not even the loudest person in the room, but they're not used to women constantly interjecting their voice and their thoughts in the room. And so it's like, who is this loud, boisterous woman?
Yeah.
If she doesn't agree with your opinion and she debates with you,
Yes.
it's not men will debate with each other, but when a woman debates too much, she's being problematic.
Yeah.
She's being argumentative.
Yeah.
So that is the challenge that sometimes you feel like the challenge is you have a right to say what you have to say. You have a right to be seen and heard in that space, but you know that exerting that right may make you come across as being misunderstood, ostracized, because especially when we are in our very traditional settings, there are strict rules about what a woman says, what she does, how she looks, how she even enters into a room. How much space does she take up? Look how you're sitting. When men sit, they pull up the chair. You see how I'm sitting? We're trained to be very compact, very demure.
Yeah.
And so when a woman takes up space, she's trying to be a man. If a man raises his voice and you tell him, I don't like, or you try to tell me, no, don't talk to me like that, you're challenging him. And so that transcends into the work that we do and that level of empowerment within yourself as a woman.
Yeah.
It becomes a challenge not in your professional life and in your personal life. How do you navigate those spaces in a way that people can understand you and respect you, and give you that space? And because sometimes we don't want to come across as we're disrespecting people. You don't want to come across as you have an issue, but realizing that sometimes you can be as sweet and as quiet and as respectful as you can be, but as long as you're not in agreement, you will be seen as disrespectful, and accepting it and doing it without any apologies. I've reached to this stage now. I say how I feel, and I stand to be corrected because nobody knows everything, but I do have a right.
Yeah.
And if you have a problem and you feel that I'm being disrespectful, that's not my problem.
Yeah.
You need to. So usually when people are very taken aback by me being assertive, I don't, and they're raising their voice, maybe they're being aggressive. I've been in environments, because most of the time, because I've been an executive director and a high professional person. So most of the spaces I operate in are male-dominated spaces.
Wow.
And I know that when they're discussing this, fine, as soon as I bring up an issue, somebody will cut me off.
Yeah.
As soon as they cut me off once or twice, I will raise my hand and say, okay, it's my time to speak now. And some will be taken aback.
Yeah.
Some will even make joke. I've heard people say, okay, Mama Africa, speak.
Yeah. But do you always have to come out that hard for them to be relaxed and allow you to speak or allow you to do your job?
Not all the
You always
time.
face that challenge, isn't it?
Not all the time, because like I say, we are evolving and people are getting used to being led by women.
Yeah.
People are getting used to being in space where women leaders are in the forefront, but it happens more often than it should. It happens more. How many times do you have that challenge of being able to speak your mind without someone feeling that you're being aggressive?
A lot, of course.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So it happens more often than it should. And that tells us that the leadership space, the decision-making space still isn't ready for women. And so those of us who are fearless, of us who have gotten to the point where we feel we don't have to explain ourselves or make apologies, we have to be continuously active in that space. And we have to look at strategic ways how we can bring more women at the table so that our counterparts men too can see the value in negotiating with us and interacting with us. So we're getting there.
Definitely.
We're definitely getting there, but we still have work to do.
What do you think about feminism?
Oh, you're asking me now you're gonna a lot of my colleagues are going to look at me under eye after this interview. So we're talking about communication.
Let's get into this. I'm just loving this conversation. Yeah. This is my last question. But if I don't get any follow-up question based on what you say.
I am a feminist.
Okay.
I am a diehard feminist.
Okay.
But I may not be a feminist in how a lot of people perceive feminism to be, or how maybe even a lot of feminists a lot of feminists, the narrative out there of what's being put out there. And I say that to say that the core concept of feminism, the core value of feminism, I 100% believe in it. And feminism is about empowering the woman so that first is really about creating space or demanding. Feminism is a movement, it's a revolution.
Okay.
So it's not begging.
Sometimes they confused about, because everyone's definition for the feminine.
Everybody's definition is different.
Yeah.
And really, at the end of the day, if your definition is about uplifting and empowering women, you're 90% there. All the other stuff, I guess, is based on your own value system and based on your own experiences. Some people experiences, they have had to fight. So their feminism is about fighting. Some people experiences is about sitting at the table and negotiating. But the bottom line for feminism, in my mind and in my experience, is about demanding a space for women to be heard, demanding a space for women to have access to the same things. And so the first is creating the space for women.
So it's not about, is it about also independence as well?
Yeah, I'm going to flip to the other side. So it's about creating the space for women, but it's also about investing and empowering women so that when they enter those spaces, they are adequately prepared to lead. And when I say nobody can lead if they haven't built themselves up to a certain level. So the issue of being independent and being driven is self-explanatory to me when I say a leader.
Yeah.
So the difference between gender equality and feminism is gender is really looking at male and female, how we work together, how we live together, how we share resources, how we make sure that the scale is balanced.
Yeah.
Feminism is about how do we position women, it's about women. It's about how do we develop women, how do we create spaces for women, how do we take our place. So that's my idea of feminism. Now, where sometimes I have a challenge with how when it becomes, I don't want to say how certain people do, I don't want to use that term, but what my challenge is why I use the word feminist very carefully, because there's this narrative out there that feminists is a us against them thing. Like it's the militant women trying to break down the man.
Yeah.
So it's not about, the narrative out there is like, oh, it's not about developing the women, it's about tearing down the men.
Yes,
It's tearing down men.
Yeah.
And so I'm very careful about saying I'm a feminist, and I say it. I don't have a problem saying it because I believe that feminism is about prioritizing and developing the woman, but not at the expense of tearing down a man.
Okay.
It should not be a war and a tug of war because as long as it's us against them, this balance that we're looking for is never going to happen.
Yeah.
And I think some people who have entered into the feminist realm have that stance of attacking men instead of engaging men. For me, I can say we need to hold men accountable. We need to make them uncomfortable so that they realize that things need to change. But attacking and creating this divide, making it seem like we're at battle, that should be the last resort. And that resort should only come when you are threatened.
Yeah.
I think with a revolution, there are times you have to fight. There are times you have to attack. But if that's your first resort, then we won't solve our problems.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, how do feminists feel like they've not been heard?
I don't know if I can put a scale on it, but if you've been shouting for years, our grandmothers were feminists.
Yeah.
I jumped over my mother.
Yeah.
Our grandmothers were feminists. Our great-grand were feminists. Women, since the suffrage movement, the meaning the right to vote, started in 1910. We are in 2025.
Yeah.
So even if we start from the suffrage movement, which was a feminist revolution,
Yeah.
and if you read in your history, it's been going. So if we just even start from there,
So I want
now,
to know if there's
we're still shouting.
So
We're still fighting. There's still, in most of our countries, especially in Africa, reproductive rights, voting rights, those basic human rights. Many women, very few, maybe few of us who have had the opportunity to be educated, have had the opportunity to be in urban settings, have traveled. We are like the 10%, if that much. But if you really do a poll, we still have majority of the women who are not enjoying those basic human rights. So we're shouting, and we're using every effort that we can. But I think it's still, in many circles, they're still playing a deaf ear. So, like I say, a lot of our governments, because how society changes through leadership, and how leadership changes society is through policies, and how leadership ensures that society change is through the implementation of those policies. And so the reality is our leadership still plays a lot of lip service to the issues around gender, women rights, etc. We write all these laws. We sign all these agreements when we go to UN. I've had a lot of experience studying all of this stuff and working with UN level organizations. But how many of our governments effectively implement these laws and policies? And always the most vulnerable and the most weakest will suffer the most. And who are the most vulnerable? Women and children.
Yeah. Because I asked you that question because I wanted to make or find out if there's been improvement since women started fighting for their rights and what they
Of course. I mean, there's been major improvement.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said before, we started with women not even having the right to vote, women not having the right to own property, women not having the right to women couldn't even, I mean, just in the 60s, 70s, up to the 80s, certain countries, women couldn't hold their own passport. They have to travel on their husband's passport. So that means if their husband's not traveling with them, they're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
So we've come a long way, but there's still many women who don't have property rights.
Yeah.
When their husband dies, the in-laws come and take everything. There's still a lot of women who don't have the right to education because of their cultural or religious setting that they find themselves in. So we've started from where women couldn't even vote. We started from where women couldn't even make decisions about how many. I mean, simple thing as how many children you want to give birth to. You don't even have control over your own body. If a woman can't even have control over her own body as far as how many children she wants to have, what color shoes she wants to wear, how she wants to fix her. You know there are not many women on this earth who can just cut all their hair and make it purple if they want to. There's a man who will say, no, I don't like that.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, she may have to adjust based on that. So we have women presidents, we have women vice presidents, we have women in top leadership positions, we have women trailblazer, women who are doing amazing things, and we're great. We're glad that the world is shifted where women can show their value and their worth. But in the midst of all of that, there's still women who can make a decision on how many kids they will have and what color they will wear their hair tomorrow.
Yeah.
So we still have work to do.
Still going. And my last question is, as a feminist, I mean, as a feminist, do you believe in 50-50 in relationship?
No relationship is 50-50.
Okay.
And I say that to say that is based on at different periods in time, if the relationship is really based on partnership and respect.
Okay.
So if the relationship is based on true partnership and respect, what does a team do? We help each other, right?
Work together.
We can work together. we recognize each other's strength. We recognize each other's weaknesses. So where you are stronger, you will give a little bit more. Where I'm stronger, I will give a little bit more. And when you can get to even when you are struggling to fulfill your responsibilities as a teammate, I'm there to buttress you and hold you up until you can get back and backwards and forward. So if a relationship between a male and female is based on these strict rules, or whether we are 50-50, or the man is supposed to do this and the woman is supposed to do this is why we struggle. Because we need to stop the issue of roles,
Okay.
gender roles, and the expectations for men, the expectations for females. We have to stop trying to quantify and put numbers and, like, okay, 50-50, or no, the men have to give 70 when it comes to certain things, or after all, he's the man, he should do all of this, and even if I have this, I won't contribute. I mean, when we do it like that, this is where people get resentful, people get tired, people get overburdened, and we see a lot of dynamics in and that's also where sometimes women put themselves in a position where their real value to the family is not honored or respected, because it seems like they're always in the receiving end and they're not contributing. And then we have these ignorant conversations about what are you bringing to the table when we the one built the table in the first place. Don't get me started about that. But but the reason why we have those questions and why you see a lot of these podcasts coming out where these a lot of men are now having these podcasts about the guy who just passed away. There's a lot of podcasts now about people talking about men being simps, and like men are starting to fight for themselves too. And a lot of men are following that and getting carried away with it because of this notion of being overused or overwhelmed, and women have all these expectations, and then women also on the other side saying, but do you know what we go through?
Yeah.
So it becomes, it's just me, my, it becomes me, what I'm dealing with, and you, what are you doing? And we forget that it's supposed to be we. In relationships and what's happening on social media with all of this stuff is that it seems like everybody, the men are on one side, the women are on one side, and everybody's saying, me, this is what, as a woman, this is what men do to me, and this is what women do to men, and this is what you, so it's like, me, what's happening to me, and you, what you are doing to me. Well, really, it should be, the conversation needs to shift to we.
Yeah.
And we really have to look at ourselves and see if we're really being fair to each other.
Do you
I
think we
don't
can
think,
ever be equal, men and women?
why not? It's just, inequality is a social construct.
Okay.
It's not a biological mandate that because you are a man or because I'm a woman.
Yeah.
It's not.
Because even the Bible
It's a social.
differentiates between the men and the women.
But equality doesn't have to do with, let me clarify. Equality has nothing to do with what position you hold. Equality has to do with the level of respect, regard, and opportunity you give me. So if I'm running I've been a head of an organization I ran an organization, I'm the executive director, right? So at the end of the day, I'm the head. I make the decisions, right? Now, I will be a very ineffective and terrible leader if I make decisions as I'm everything, I know everything, and I have no respect or regard for what everybody else has to say, from the cleaner all the way up. Because the cleaner in that building, who may be the least paid, or maybe even on the scale, the cleaner is what people always feel that's the lowest job, right?
Yeah.
They're probably one of the most important persons in the building. Because when the cleaner doesn't come on time, you can't have this podcast. You can't have your meetings because the place is not clean. There's not enough water. So equality is about seeing the value in everybody and treating them as you would like to be treated. So it's not, but we keep fighting each other because everybody wants to be power. We're struggling because we're fighting for power.
Yeah.
It is not about position, because the reality is, if I'm running an organization and I don't have a meeting with my team, if I don't have my deputy right next to me, and I'm not taking the advice from my deputy, that organization will fall apart very quickly. It's the same thing with relationships and marriages. I have no problems with a man being the head of the home. because there are roles that he needs to play in order to be the head of the home. He just needs to play his role as the head of the home. But I also know that being the head of the home does not mean you are the Lord and ruler of your home. Being the head of the home means you now have because you are in the position. Being the head means you must lead.
Yeah.
That means you're making decisions based on the best interests of your family. You're leading, meaning leading also means you're standing in front, meaning your job is to protect.
Yeah.
Your job is to cover. Your job is to do all of those things.
Yeah.
But you cannot do those things effectively if you don't have a partner that you respect their opinion, guys, because our job is to guide you.
Yeah. So there's gender roles then?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, and guess what? Even those gender rules, I mean, when I say those are still social constructs.
All right.
Meaning there are many families where the female is the head of the home. And they are in the front, they are protecting, they are doing all of those things. It just is the way how societal expectation and the way how we've been
Programmed,
it makes sense for us. And there's a lot of other biological reason that makes it to make sense, because men are physically stronger. When it's time to fight, as much as I know I'm very strong in my, if it's time to fight and I am in the company, if there's no men, I'll do what I can do. But if I see a man, I'm standing behind him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also when it's time to to manage and make things happen and to figure things out, most men would turn to either their mother or their sister or their wife.
Yeah.
Because that's who we are.
Yeah. Because everyone has their strength.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean that a man cannot pay attention, can't solve problems,
Of course.
and do all of those. There are many men who are single fathers and they're nurturing and they're doing all of those things. So that's why I keep saying to you, there is no biological rule.
Yeah.
That's the only biological rule that we can't cross right now is you can't give birth and I can't impregnate.
Yeah.
But outside of that, there's nothing that a woman, society expects a woman to do that a man cannot do.
Yeah.
And there's nothing that society expects a man to do that a woman cannot do. We just play our gender roles, and it's okay to play gender roles because that's how societies need for society to function, they need things to be in certain place.
Yeah.
So it's okay to play those roles, but it's also okay to challenge those roles when it doesn't fit for you. And that's where it goes back to your 50-50 question.
Yeah.
Is that if the woman is more financially sound than the man at that point or in that situation, yes, the man needs to be a provider. He needs to be thinking about how he can do it. But does that mean now that the woman would not help? Or does that mean that the man will begin to resent the woman because she's doing more, or she will begin to disrespect him?
There's this research saying when women get position in high positions, their attitude and everything is different.
I don't like generalized statements because the reality is anybody who's in position will have a certain attitude and a certain human nature. Yeah, human nature. What changes about the woman when she's in what you would consider maybe an upper hand position? Maybe what changes so much in the woman as far as like maybe if she is in a more leadership position or she's more financially stable, what really changed? Tell me, I'm going to ask you a question.
Yeah.
What changes about her?
As in, if they get into a higher position.
Yeah. What really changes about her?
A lot changes about
Just give me a
maybe
few.
they are more financial stable.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they feel more powerful. They feel more head.
More hurt?
More head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But how does that affect? Because you said it changes them. Does that?
Yeah.
Because if you're more financially stable, you're more powerful, you feel like you're being heard.
Yeah.
How does that
Because
not change how you're behaving?
Because usually
What
women
does that
get
shift
that.
in your behavior?
So usually women don't get that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? So once they get it, maybe they I don't know, maybe I would say, because you know when you are always eager to get to somewhere, and once you get it, because of the thrive, the anger, like the how you struggle to
You've
get
been
the
kept down for so long, now you finally
now
arrive.
you are there.
Now you have to.
Yeah, exactly. So you can easily forget about it, like forget yourself, forget who you are and where you came from.
Let me back.
I understand this, like it's a lot, like it happens to everyone, but it's like it's just changes. You know, you see more like 'cause that kind of effect like effective change with women than men.
Okay. So this is what I will say. Anyone who transcends from one stage to the next in their life, their behavior will change. Their behavior will change. It doesn't mean they become less humble, but maybe they become more confident. And a lot of times when people become more confident and more sure of themselves and more less flexible in a lot of things, it comes across as they're being, but actually they have built their confidence because they worked on themselves to get to a certain place, and they built their confidence, they built their own self-awareness and assurity. And so they're very comfortable in their space, in their skin. So it comes across sometimes as, because the people are used to them being like this.
Yeah.
And now they're like this. And then they say that, no, they're just exuding more confidence than you're used to.
And that's fine. That's normal.
That's normal. I can tell you, most men, that's how they walk anyway. So because they're used to being in the position, what's the first thing a man says when he's threatened, especially by a female? I'm a man. Don't you know I'm a man?
Yeah, don't talk to me like that.
I'm a man. You know? Why? Because the confidence and the power and the position that society, feel. So it's the only thing that there's two sides of it.
Yeah.
There's the side that, yes, a person who has been kept down for so long that sometimes when they finally get to where they want to be, there can be negative effects. Meaning either it gets to their head and they want to overproof themselves, and then they become the very thing that they hated, or the very thing, the people that were talking down to them, they become that person. Or they get so power hungry and so excited to be in that position that they lose themselves.
Yeah.
And that can happen to anyone. You think about even the change in power when we talk about political government, they what we call the opponents, the what do you call them? The
Opposition.
the opposition. Thank you. Opposition is extremely humble and very much for the people when they don't have the power and the funds.
Yeah.
But what happens most of the time when opposition gets into power? We start crying on them. So there's that aspect of human nature.
Yeah.
That when we've been kept down and pushed down for so long, they say power corrupts. That if we're not careful and we focus more on the pain of our past and not the possibility of our future, we turn into the very thing that we cried about. And that happens to women too. Because anybody who's been beaten down for a long, they run the risk of that happening. Women have been beaten down. So there are some women who, when they get the upper hand, they're like, okay, I will show you.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's some women who, when they have the upper hand financially in their relationship, they will beat that man down. Maybe because they were beaten down so many times. Does that mean it's right? No, it's completely wrong.
Yeah.
And that's why we have to be careful. And that's why we need to have as many of these types of conversations and spaces so that we avoid those things from happening. But it's not that women are.
Yeah.
It's just that that's human nature. And it's just that it seems like men tend to are crying on it now because more women are becoming in that position, and they're not used to women being in those having that dynamic. And so you're feeling the pinch of it. So sometimes there's the negative part of it where they pay, where it's almost like it's a revenge thing now. It's my time to, and we need to work on that as women. But then the other side of it is she really trying to act like she's, but this other side, there's the positive aspect of it.
Okay.
Is that as more women develop themselves and as more women are financially sound, they will stand up for themselves more. They will make their own decisions. They will have strong opinions because they have control over their lives.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that she's trying to be anything.
Yeah.
She's doing the same thing that you would do.
Yeah.
The same thing that men do every day. And so what I think we need to understand that the world is changing.
Yeah.
Society is changing. And the concept of what it means to be a man, it doesn't, having strong women in your life shouldn't threaten your manhood. It should enhance your manhood. And so we need to figure that part out. Because strong women aren't going anywhere. Women like us are raising daughters. So it's going to get worse for the next generation. Yeah. So, and but also as we're raising strong daughters, we need to also make sure that they don't feel like they're going into a battlefield. I think the responsibility is on both sides. We need to raise men the boys that we're raising, we need to raise them to be secure enough in their manhood that they can handle being in a relationship with a woman that's secure in her womanhood.
Yeah.
And we need to raise women that can be healed enough from her brokenness and the things, the inequality and the suffering that women go through, so that when she does have an opportunity to exert herself and to lead, she doesn't use that opportunity to break down the man.
Yeah.
So that's the
Great.
work we have to do.
Great. Let me say this. Okay, I want us to touch a little bit on the cultural differences, right?
Okay.
So when I look at feminist or feminism in general, what I see from the Western world, feminism is different from our sort of, feminism, like in Africa. Because when I see people speaking about speaking about feminism in the Western world, then you see these people very independent, where they don't rely on men, they do their own thing. But when I hear our people speak about feminism, they speak so highly of feminism, but yet they rely on men. Yet they expect the baby girl treatment, yet they depend so much. Their whole life is around men. They expect men to do this for them, to do that for them. So I want to understand. I want to know: is it possible, to be feminist, and still rely on men or a man?
Okay. So let's put it like this. We'll talk about, let me answer your last question, then I will put it into the cultural and social context.
Okay.
Because we're also talking about women and men in two very different cultures. The Western culture is vastly different from our culture in a lot of ways. And so how male and female relationship manifests itself, there may be some changes. Even socially, and it's most about social and economic issues. Yeah. But let me say this, because the last question you asked me was, can a woman be a feminist and still be dependent
Yeah.
on a man? I guess it's about how you understand the word dependent to be. Because can a man be a man and still be dependent on a woman?
Mm.
The concept of masculinity, I'm a man, right?
Yeah.
Can a man be a man and be strong in his masculinity and in his manhood and still be dependent on a woman?
Mm.
I'm asking that question because there are certain things that men need and require from women, no matter how evolved they are, right? And the man that will stand up today and say he does not need a woman, I laugh.
Yeah.
I laugh. And I'm not even talking about the physical aspect between male and female. That one is just the bottom line. But the emotional support that a woman gives. I mean, unless you have a foolish woman. But if you find a sound woman, if you have never been in a relationship with such a woman, then think back to your relationship with your mother or auntie or a sister. That kind of that foundation, that solid, that no matter what the world does to you, you can, you have, after you have fought the world, when you come back, you have that safe place. There's a place where you can be vulnerable. That person's gonna understand you and gonna allow you to be weak. Because men don't get to be weak. You don't get to talk about your feelings. You don't get to cry.
Yeah.
You don't get to lay your head somewhere and say, I'm tired.
Yeah.
But that's why there's a main reason why men need women. And so my question is, there are reasons why men have to be dependent on women, need women, because a man that does not have a soft place to land, at the end of the day, is a self-destructive man. That's why you see alcoholism. You see them just jumping from relationship to, all kinds of bad decisions, because I don't care why you need a soft place to land. And when your mom's alive, it's okay, but when she passed away, who do you go to? So the same thing with a woman. As independent and as strong as we are, if we don't have a strong shoulder to lean on, if we don't feel covered and nurtured and protected, I don't care how. I posted on my Facebook page the other day. I said I'm one of the strongest and bravest women I know. But I know at the end of the day, I'm very soft. And I need, when I say I'm soft, I can be very strong, I can be very stubborn, I can be very deliberate about my decisions in my life. And I'm brave enough to face some things that most people I've been through and face some things head on.
Yeah.
When you get in a situation where you say, if I perish, I perish.
Yeah.
So I know I'm strong. I know I'm brave. But I also want someone that I can lean on. I want somewhere where I can be protected and covered.
Okay.
So now that's human relations.
Okay.
And I really believe that God made us the way we made us because he knew men will have to be like this.
Yeah.
So he needed women to be soft so that men can have a place to rest. And he made women like the way we are so that we can be able to take care of the other things and we can be able to stand strong for our men and for our family, for our communities. But when we're tired, because do you know how many roles women play? Men, y'all play the role provider.
Yeah.
You know,
That's it. Yeah.
we nurse, we this, we don't sleep.
Yeah.
So when do we rest? So we need each other to rest. You need us to rest mentally and emotionally.
Yeah.
We need you to rest physically. And so sometimes it's about you taking care of some of the responsibilities and doing things for us. So I know I took the back road to come to your question, but to let you know that there's nobody who's independent of the rest of the world, and there's no gender nobody has reached to the level of whatever that they can say they don't need another gender. You can live without it. You can manage your life without it. But your internal self, if you have the opportunity to have it, you will take it.
Yeah.
You will want it. Now, in our cultural context, and our social economic context, you see it happen where you see a lot of women, they're speaking out, they're standing, but at the same time, they're still depending on men for everything.
Yeah.
So now I'm coming to your question.
I'm very frustrated.
Your frustration thing. And that's where I say,
And these are the women that actually speak down on men.
and so I will answer that and then I'll talk about the point where you made the women, because it goes back to the thing I was saying about me against you and us.
Yeah.
Socially, let's talk about social and cultural issues first. Our society, our culture is still it's still packaged in a way where it's still very strongly patriarchal. So and I'm speaking it very loosely because I'm not even buying to the idea that women just talk the talk, but at the end of the day they want men to do everything.
Yeah.
I'm not so what I'm saying very loosely in the sense that our social construct is set up in a way where these gender roles make it in the way we interact with each other, the way we interact in relationships, and those expectations and those requirements are there in the front. But when you peel back the layers and you enter into many of our homes and our relationships, you know very well everybody's doing what they can do. Everybody's, and maybe I'm not a Ghanaian, so I don't know the Ghanaian relationship dynamics, but I will speak from my perspective as an African woman.
Okay.
And I know, and my perspective as an African woman, a Liberian woman, and I know that as much as in our social context, and in all social contexts, men are still required to be the provider. And so that will translate into our relationship as far as boyfriend, girlfriend, or marriage, or whatever else. So that is going to be the requirement. Men are supposed to be the providers. Women are supposed to be the nurturers. That is social construct.
Okay.
But I also know that when you enter into your home, those expectations will be there. But when you start to do your daily, if the relationship is again about teamwork, the shifts of who provides and who nurture, it fluctuates. It fluctuates. Even if the requirement still is your job, but it will fluctuate even though the requirement is still on you. So in our social context, those expectations are still there. So you're going to have to negotiate it with whoever you are with. In our economic context, again, sometimes in our economic context, when you see women shouting, but at the same time, they're still depending on men because they're shouting because they want more opportunities. They want the world to be fair. They want to be able to seen as a valuable member of the society, even if they don't have the level of education and financial stability as you have. So right now, they may not be at the level of education or financial prowess as you. So just logically,
Yeah.
they need you.
They need you. Yeah.
They need you. But at the same time, they may not like the fact that they're in the position where they need you and they want that to
So
change.
basically, they're just using us.
No, how do you say using us?
Yeah, because they need us now. They haven't.
You need us too.
They haven't got no choice right now. That's why.
In order
Because it looks like they're waiting for the right time, the right opportunity to get what they want. It's just because they haven't got what they want. No.
What are they gonna do?
Then that's when you're gonna see them. Do you know what I mean? That's when they get to the top, they want to prove a point.
Okay. So I'll answer your two questions and then we'll go back and we'll end on the original statement what I made about we need to shift how we see relationship.
Okay.
Because if we're counting score
Mm.
and we're calculating who did what and who did what and we will fight this battle and we'll be miserable till we die. And for me, I'm stubborn, I'm hard-headed, I'm not a woman that you can easily knock her head and control. But at the same time, I know that I need men in my life. And I know that they play a role in my life, and I have no problem negotiating that space.
Yeah.
I think the challenge is we don't want to negotiate. And I guess I'm ending my talk. Then I'll go back to your question.
Yeah.
I think the challenge here we're facing is we're not negotiating the space well. And what I mean by that is men are so used to having a certain level of power and control in that space that as women are developing themselves and they try to share power and control is seen as a threat. And so it's not a negotiation where we come and say, okay, I see that you want to do this. Let me let you do this. Or let's have a conversation of what works for us. Let me let you lead in certain areas. And so that's one side of it. And then from the female side of it is that sometimes we also, as we are negotiating our space, negotiating our place,
Yeah.
we may not, we sometimes are not fair to men in the sense of we're not fair to them in the sense of we don't stop long enough to truly understand their pains, their vulnerabilities. We don't create a safe space for the man. The man is afraid to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And let us know because the men feel will weaponize it against them. We'll use it in an argument to prove to him that he's not man enough.
Yeah, you're not man enough.
Yes.
And it happens.
And I know it happens. Look, I'm a family therapist, so everything I'm talking, I will talk from both perspectives.
Yeah.
I told you I'm a gender person.
Yeah.
I'm a feminist, but I have a gender perspective.
Yeah.
So, and that's what we so there's and we're not negotiating that space well. There's a shift. We're not in those days where we are not in hunter and gatherers, where the men were hunting and the women were preparing. We are all hunting now. We are not in a stage where the man went to work and he came home and the food was done and the children were, so. It's not like that anymore. We're all going to work. So if every one of us is going to work and everybody is bringing something to the table, then we need to understand that we need to sit at the table, put what we're bringing to the table, and see the one that I'm bringing, how can it benefit your life?
Yeah.
And the one that you're bringing, how can it benefit my life? And how can we build a legacy together? Now, and the reality is, because all of us are going out there. So when I can't go out there, take the time out to go out there and come home and then say everything that I've worked for is for me, then let me be by myself. And the man can say, okay, I'm going out there and I'm working hard. So when I put a table, then I make all the decisions. Then let him be by himself. So be with a woman who has nothing to contribute to your life and die at the age of 45 because you're overstressed, taking care of all these bills alone. Or as a woman, be with a man that will do everything for you. And you don't have to do anything, but every day he's insulting you and trying to control you.
Yeah.
See how well that works for you as a male and as a female.
To make.
So how about we value what each other are bringing to the table, and we negotiate it based on what will make you feel stronger as a man, as Julius.
Yeah.
Because when we generalize things, it becomes gender roles again.
Yeah.
So what makes you feel seen and heard as Julius, and what will make me feel seen and heard as Aisha? That may be like, I'm not good at domestic stuff. I tell people all the time. The reality is, personally, I'm not the most domesticated woman. Very good at certain things that, a good wife is supposed to do, right? There are things I'm good at. I'm a very good cook.
Yeah.
I'm very good I'm good with children. Um, I'm very good with being patient and listening. But I mean, I'm not the best at, like, I don't know, what's my thing. I'm not good at, like, packing things and keeping things in order. My mind is jumping too much to be packing things.
Yeah.
But if I have a partner who's very neat and orderly, let him be the one who manages that part of the home.
Yeah.
So that's the point I'm trying to be. How do we negotiate this space? The reality is, we're both going out there and working.
Yeah.
So as you go out there as a provider and as I go out there as a provider, we're both not bringing it to the table, we negotiate. So if we're both providing, then that means we're both nurturing. So then in the home, we need to again sit at the table and where your strengths are, how do we provide for our home? You may be better taking care of the kids. I may be better taking care of, like, the like, I'm good at things like, if the carpenter needs to come or the light bulbs need to change, I'm good at those handy things. I can stay on top of those things.
Okay.
I get tired of dealing with pick up your socks and back your disc.
Yeah.
So it becomes, and that's the point I'm trying to make. And that's the work that I'm really trying to get us away. That's my stance of feminism and gender, is that let's get us away from us against them. Because if God desire for us to be against each other, then he wouldn't have constructed us physically and emotionally in a way that we need each other.
Yeah.
There is no way the human race can continue if we don't physically connect.
Yeah.
There's no way that the human race can continue healthily if we don't emotionally connect. And so what I feel like, because we're fighting so much, we're only connecting physically and procreating, but we have so many unhealed people, and we see the world is just spiraling because we don't want to change. We don't want to have these conversations.
Yeah.
So your comment about then the woman is just using the man.
Yeah. Because they're just waiting for the right opportunity.
Right for the right opportunity. And what I wanted to say to you is the only way you can use somebody is if you're just taking from them and you're not pouring anything back into them.
Okay.
So if you are in a situation with a female,
Yeah.
or vice versa, I'm in a situation with a male, and I feel like I'm pouring into them and I'm barely getting anything back from them, then yes, they're using you, and you need to make a decision on how you're going to negotiate that relationship. And maybe you and that person need to have a conversation so that they can adjust, because some people, they just do other bad habit, but they don't realize how they're hurting you or harming you. And if they truly love you and care about you, they will adjust.
Yeah.
Or you may realize that that's the only reason they want to be with you, and then you move on. So for me, I'm not going to use that general statement and say women are using men. No, that's not true.
Yeah.
Women need certain things from men, or sometimes we require certain things from men, and men need and require certain things from women. And so sometimes those roles are being played out in our relationships, but those roles need to be challenged and negotiated, not one time, several times, because the dynamics of your relationship will change. That's why you have to create a foundation of open and honest communication, where you don't have to be a man all the time and be strong. You can be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And she doesn't have to be guarded and afraid because she wants to protect herself from your manhood. Because it flips on the other side too. A lot of women don't. I was hanging out, and I'm gonna shut up. I remember one time I was hanging out with a bunch near my friends, female friends. We're all hanging out on the beach, and then we met some guys that we knew, right? And they were sitting with us, and we just had fun laughing, talking from one thing to the next. And then one of the guys, he said, "I'm having such a good time. I've never sat in the company of female just be able to have fun like this. Like, I'm just talking." He's like, "You girls are different, you know?" And then he said, we have to hang out like this more. And I know he's married.
Yeah.
So I told him, I said, "Okay, then the next time bring your wife." Then he said, "Oh, that woman, da 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 da." I said, so the reality is you're craving a relationship with a female where you can be open and vulnerable and free.
Yeah.
Because you say, oh, that woman, she everything, she has a problem with it. She's too close up. She's not open, like how you guys are open. So I told you, have you made the space safe enough for her to feel open?
Yeah.
Because every time she sees you're more comfortable with other women, then when she's in the company of other women, she will feel guarded.
Yeah.
And so it goes back to, the funny thing about it is, all of us just are little kids who need love
Yeah.
and comfort, but everybody's trying to prove a point.
Yeah.
Men are trying to prove that they are men.
Yeah.
And women are trying to prove that they will not be taken advantage of. And so instead of just bringing it down and saying, this is what I need, and negotiating that space, we're fighting.
Yeah.
So that's all I have to say.
Definitely. But yeah, what I want, that's what I was saying about the women. I mean, human using men is not like in general. I was just talking about the people that stand up for feminism. They scream feminism, they insult men, on the internet and all that. But yet, you go and then you see the relationship. I know a lot of people, I know a lot of the females that stand up for feminism, but yet, they want the, baby girl treatment from their men. You know what I mean? So, and that's why I said that's where my frustration belongs, because I feel like a lot of people, a lot of the ladies now lie to people on social media as well
Okay.
to stand for feminism. Yeah, yet they want their birthday present, they want the man to take them here, they want the man to take them there, and then when we spoke about, how obviously maybe the woman, and then also one thing as well that, is out there that people also know is like when men, when a man is looking for money, when a man is trying to make it, they're thinking about family. They're thinking about how to look after their family, how to protect their family, how to protect them. But when a woman is getting money, they're thinking about becoming independent.
Okay. Again, the reason I laugh, because I can put my finger on so many women who have the same perspective, including myself, that when we get money, we're thinking about the same thing that men are thinking about. But I won't negate or belittle what you've just said, because there are many, I wouldn't say even most, but there are many, 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 many women out there who do have the perspective from where you're coming from your experience, and that can be frustrating for a man. So I just want to give that caveat that no, not all women are like that. And a lot of men need to really reevaluate what are the real qualities they're looking for in a woman. Because I can pinpoint many women, young and old, that I've come in contact with who are very independent, very hardworking, and very and expect and deserve baby girl treatment, but also will give the same. So that's the first thing I'm gonna tell you. Say no. I don't care. We expect and deserve to be treated like baby girl. Why not?
Exactly.
Why not?
No, and yeah, and
That's part of why you're here, to take care of us and protect us.
yeah,
But with that expectation, there has to be something that we're giving to you to fulfill you, so that when you're giving the baby, like if that woman is touching the softest part of you, you would treat her like baby girl. She would not, she would treat her. I mean, some of you would take advantage, and so again, I flip to the other side.
yeah,
As I'm telling you that, look at the qualities and characteristics of the woman that you with, so that when you do give all of that, you get a woman who can pour back into you. And at the same time, I would say that to my sisters, because a lot of us give, and then we are taken advantage of, we're misused. And as soon as he sees the next best thing, you talk about the next best thing. Talk about as soon as women get more money, then they leave. Do you know how many men they as soon as they see something that looks younger, fresher, finer, or even sometimes she's not even more beautiful, but she's just new, and they are gone. So it happens to all of us, and so nobody's immune from it. And even in the best case scenario, sometimes you still end up in that place. But again, that's why I say it takes constant communication and negotiation. So that when you feel like you're being used and you feel like you're being taken advantage of, how do you come back to the table as a man and be vulnerable enough and say, I'm hurt when you do this. I feel bad when you do this. Because when you do that, you create a space for them to either change or leave.
Yeah.
And once they change, you're happy. If they leave, you're happy.
Yeah.
And how many women do we have that safe space to be able to have that same conversation? Because sometimes when we bring out the conversation, we get shut down because you guys don't want to deal with emotions. We're too emotional. We are women, you have problem. Or we either get shut down or we get beat down. Because some men, they get angry and they hit, you know? So I'm still going to bring it back to the table is we got to adjust.
Have to adjust.
We have to adjust.
Definitely.
Women have to be able to allow men to be soft.
Yeah.
Because if the man doesn't have a safe space to rest, you will always be at loggerheads with him, and he will be more into what's out there than what's in here. And women will always be defensive and be waiting for their opportunity, because if the man does not allow her to be able to breathe and to stand, because the first opportunity she gets to finally be able to speak without repercussion, she will speak. And you know us here, when we start, that's the thing that you did 10 years ago. We'll start from there.
Because you men never,
Because we've been
never
keeping
forget.
it. Yeah. They are tired and we must talk.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying how sensitive we are intentional about it. So, and it still goes back to we're trying to run male and female relationship in our workplace, in our communities, and in our personal relationships with 1930 values.
Yeah.
And the world, we are evolving, but our values are not evolving.
Yeah.
And so women need to go back and reevaluate their values about what it means what it means for a man to be a provider, and what it means, and what are the dynamics of a relationship. And men need to go back and reevaluate what it means for a woman to be a nurturer. Because women are providers and nurturers, men are providers and nurturers. That is the new formula now. So how do we now become equal partners and play that role in each other's life?
Yeah. And it's very so much okay for women to speak up, to fight for their rights and everything, to also get the equal opportunities as men get, but it's just how to balance it, how to know your place and stuff. Do you know what I mean? People, get confused where they feel like everything has to be equal, but not everything can be equal. What, as you said, when you look at it from like biological, aspect, culture aspect,
It depends on how you understand equal. Everything must be equal.
must be equal.
But equality is not you talk 50% of the time, I talk 50%. You bring 50, I bring 50. You decide 50, I decide 50. There must be no. I see equality as respect. So it must be equal. It must be equal. Meaning when I say it must be equal is respect and power.
Okay.
No human being. I tell people all the time, if you cut my hand and you cut your hand and we just look at the blood on the floor, we can tell which one is male blood and female blood. We all bleed the same.
Okay.
So why should your feelings or your or what you say or what you need or what you require hold more weight than mine?
Okay.
When I was created by the same God you were created. So that's where I have an issue with why I say it must be equal. The equality comes with the respect and regard and the opportunities that we get. It doesn't, don't tell me, don't you know I'm a man? I'll say, okay, but I'm a woman. So what's your point?
So what you're saying is some of the things have to be equal, but some doesn't have to be equal. Depending on where you stand.
What I'm saying is equality is respect, regard, and access.
What about responsibilities?
That goes all of that. Because it will funnel into your responsibilities, right? Respect, regard, and access.
So does the responsibilities have to be
Responsibility is a subset of that. And I'm going to come to the other side. So I look at equality as the level of respect, regard, and access I have opposed to you based on our gender.
Okay.
Now, if I come from that perspective, that means when it comes to responsibilities, the responsibilities will be negotiated based on respect, regard, and access. That's when the conversation comes in, right?
Okay.
If you respect me,
Yeah.
and you hold me in hard regard, and you give me opportunity,
Yeah.
we can now sit at the table and discuss responsibilities, and we can be able to negotiate responsibilities. If you have those three, so if you don't have those three things, then you'll always be looking for the numerical formula, whether it should be 50-50, or I think she's using me, or I think he's taking advantage of me, and you will fight that battle all day. But equality is about the level of respect, the level of regard meaning the level of esteem. How much do you value me? And then opportunities, how much space do you create for me to shine? If that's equality, and if you are getting more of those than me just because you are a man, we have a problem. And if you expect me to sit down and shut up and not demand those three things because I'm a woman, you will not like me. The end. And I will not make any apology. That's when I'm a diehard feminist and I will fight. That's when the revolution begins.
Yeah.
Now,
I get. Yeah.
whether who provides, who takes care of the home, who does this, who does that, who represents the family, who speaks up, who leads, is negotiated between the two of you. There'll be many times where you may be in the front. There are times when she may have to be in the front.
Yeah.
Depends on the situation. So when it's time to fight, why should I jump up? If I'm physically stronger than the man, of course it might make sense. But if he's physically stronger than me, why should I fight? It becomes to so it's not so much that he's the man, but he's more physically apt to win that battle than me. Now, when it comes to arguing a point and being relentless, you guys don't have patience. Send us, we'll go. Eh,
Oh, okay, amazing, great stuff, great stuff. Thank you so much for coming. Is there anything that you want to say that we haven't given you the opportunity to say? You have the platform. That's the camera. It's yours.
okay.
And then how people can also connect with you.
Okay. All right. So no, thank you. I think we covered a lot. I know we
Yeah,
had other plans,
exactly. That was not our topic today.
but you actually brought up the topic that we talked about is something that's my favorite topic. It's something that I hold dear to my heart. Like I told you, not only I'm a gender specialist, so I work on gender issues from the policy level,
Yeah.
all the way down to the community level, and then I have my degree, my first degree in family studies. So all these things about how we negotiate relationships, how do we make sure that we all feel safe and we all feel heard. I mean, that's the bottom line. Oh,
Yeah.
everybody wants to feel safe and want to feel heard.
Yeah.
And if we can give that respect and regard for each other, you have something. And so that's the work I do. So I'm excited that the conversation shifted to this.
Yeah.
Even though I do many other things, and I'm sure we'll talk about it. But I think we spoke a lot about what holds dear to my heart. Because my core focus is this battle that we're trying to fight, men against women, and who will win? Well, nobody's gonna win. Because if the men eliminate all the women, they will die of hunger and thirst.
Yeah.
And if the women eliminate all the men, we will suffer too.
Yeah.
So the bottom line is let's stop pretending and realize that we need each other.
Yeah.
And figure out how we can recalibrate our value system to fit with the new. I mean, and it's good that I'm glad that we're having this struggle.
Yeah.
Because the fact that we're having this struggle means that our feminist work and our women empowerment work since 1910, over the past 100 or more years, is working. Because now men are starting to challenge gender issues and challenge because they're feeling the uncomfortableness. And it's okay to be uncomfortable because that means it's time for a shift. My thing about it is change is good, but how do we do change in a way that's healthy and that will help us to evolve as people?
Yeah.
So I'm always excited about talking about gender and women's rights from that perspective of how do we support each other. That's my thing.
Yeah.
How do we support each other? Fighting is the last resort. Fighting should be only based on survival. But again, thank you again for having me. My work that I do, like I told you, my brand is, since I moved to Ghana, I started my own brand because I'm semi-retired.
Okay.
So I do mostly consulting work.
Okay.
I do consulting work and then I do events.
All right.
And so my brand is called AC Bruce. And I have three what I would say services or products under my brand. Okay, so I have AC Bruce Consultancy, and that's their professional development work, meaning I help organizations build their organization, do fundraising. If somebody just even has a concept and they want to translate that into a full-fledged business or a full-fledged organization, I help you to do all the conceptualization, the development, do trainings for your staff in many different areas. And then my other work is the fire experience, because I'm also an ordained minister.
Okay.
Yeah, so fire means fulfilled, inspired, restored, empowered. And it's really about building is the fire is about when you've been through it and you are standing strong and what it means to overcome and the power that comes from that. So I do a lot of events and ministry around being, fire. My thing is I am fire. Not fire can't even consume fire. Yeah. And then my other service product is Dare to be Fabulous. I think when Lady Ajo was on the phone, she said, I know you have already you put yourself together. Yeah. Because my Dare to be Fabulous brand is mainly for women and girls. And it's about encouraging women to be brave and be bold and to take up space and make sure when you step in the room, they know that you are there. Yeah. Based on just fabulous could be how you dress, how you carry yourself, what you say, how you enjoy life. Yeah. Like live your life in a way that you are free to be yourself and be authentic. Yeah. And so a lot of women they feel so stuck in these boxes of what how we're supposed to behave. Yeah. Everybody is telling us to behave. Cross your legs, sit down, don't be loud. You know you are married, right? And no. Be your fabulous self. And so that's my other brand. And so I do events encouraging women to come out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. I mean, guys, this was not our topic today. We're gonna talk about effective communication. But I mean, I just asked the first question, and then I mean that's something that I had so many questions about, feminism, and then it just came naturally, So you're gonna see me and Aisha again, where we're gonna talk about effective communication, and how it impacts our what is it? Our
Effective communication. How do we use it to increase our visibility? How to position
is and
ourselves?
our impact.
Our
So
impact, yes.
yeah, so yeah, that's gonna be our next topic. But let me know what you think in the comment section. Do you agree with our conversation, things that Aisha has educated us about? Let me know what you think, or do you disagree? But hey, healthy, very, very, very healthy comments though, because this platform is very healthy. So we don't want none of that. Okay. So thank you so much for watching us, and then see you next time. Thank you for spending time with us. Just remember, success is a journey, not a destination. Remember to keep what you've learned today and keep building it. Thank you.